I wanted to start off this video a little bit differently and hopefully not too radically before we dive headfirst into the video proper. As some of you may know, I am a very big purveyor of both legality and industry support as far as anime and manga are concerned. I'm not one to necessarily berate or belittle those who either can't or choose not to support the industry that we love so much for one reason or another, but I always try to look for ways to continue that support myself and make it known to my audience, such that if there are people who share my views, that they are not left in the dark and have their options open to them. So, as such, I wanted to very quickly point your attention to a website called Bookwalker. Bookwalker Global is a seller of digital manga and light novels that have been officially translated into English, specifically those owned by a Japanese publishing company, Kadokawa. They have a lot of stuff that is legally available, and if reading manga and light novels are your thing, I would suggest checking them out, and there will be a coupon code in the description, GRRCATA, in all lowercase, that you can use for a discount if indeed those things do interest you. So now you know that exists. If it's interesting, go check it out. If not, that's cool too. And bringing it back slightly to the topic at hand, they do sell copies of the original manga for the show that we will be discussing today, though we will not be discussing that manga itself beyond its existence. Because now we can put all that aside and we can talk about the anime. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Let's jam. Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid is a 2017 comedy slice of life series directed by Yasushiro Takamoto, based on the work of the same name by Cool Kyo Shinja, and produced by Kyoto Animation. It takes place in modern-day Japan, focusing around a software engineer by the name of Miss Kobayashi. As if the title didn't give that away. Kobayashi is a person that, at the start of the series, exudes a feeling of normalcy. She gets up every day, she goes to work in her cubicle, she listens to the demand of managers, and then goes out drinking with her coworker, who shares similar tastes and hobbies, such as maids. Of course, that's only half of the show's title. The next important part is Toru. After a drunken escapade lands Miss Kobayashi lost in the middle of the nearby mountain wilderness, she comes across the dragon Toru, and through her wit, charm, and all these other attributes that only her drunken self is confident with, she convinces Toru to come and be her maid, only to forget about it the next morning when she encounters the real-life dragon outside her front door. And let the hijinks begin. Over the course of 13 episodes, we cover the life of Kobayashi. Her new life, as her normal life now has to accommodate the existence of dragons. Plural. The show doesn't necessarily follow any semblance of an overarching plot, as is the norm with comedy anime. However, quite a bit of emphasis is placed on character arcs. By and large, the characters we get introduced to at the beginning of the series get the ability to grow and change as they encounter new experiences. This isn't just like with the obvious, like having the dragons Toru and Kana offhandedly learn something new about the world of humans only to never bring it up again, but sometimes things like how humans interact in social situations, how they work under pressure, and of course, how to be a maid, or at least a better maid. The latter of which takes Toru some time to really get a handle on. And Kobayashi, as well, ends up developing into a character that is good at adapting to new situations. Early on, her life consisted through just going through the motions, but now every day is a new little mini adventure. She could have just mentally shut down or forced the dragons out of her life, because dealing with them is sometimes far more trouble than it's worth, but that's not who she is as a character. And one of the first full scenes between Kobayashi and Toru that we see is when Toru explains how the two of them met. As the entire conversation plays out, and we see Kobayashi quickly move to a stance of, okay, how can I get back to my normal life? Saying things that, like, hiring a maid would be impossible, and she just can't help the impossible. All the while this is happening, there are hints in the conversation that Kobayashi is not personally against having Toru around, but rather that she is unwilling to go against her quote-unquote normal life. And it's not until Toru's usefulness is brought to the forefront, like an ability that'll quickly get Kobayashi to work when she's late, for example, that whatever social expectations or inhibitions she had previously goes out the window in favor of not being late for work, then somewhat reluctantly allowing Toru to stay with her. And that whole scene from episode 1 is just the start in a long series of development for Kobayashi as a character. She's not one to just completely shut down and fight against the changes in her life, instead opting to slowly embrace them and the consequences. She becomes more of a head of the household type person as she supports Toru and Kana through their new experiences. And the gentle transition of this is what in part makes the show entertaining. Of course, there is also the inherent comedy that a series like this possesses, but I never found it to be particularly harsh comedy. It's not a series that got me in stitches or laughing heavily out loud or something like that. Sure, there are moments of slapstick that will probably wrangle some semblance of a positive sounding noise from my lungs, but mostly I found the show's humor to be far more subtle. Toru in her first attempts to clean, or explain to Kama the purpose of a teeter-totter when she has no idea. These things mostly just fall under cute misunderstandings, and while I may not openly laugh with them, it's a kind of comedy that just warms the heart. That's what's enjoyable about this show. That's the kind of thing that I like out of this. In addition to that is the character designs that exhibit the kind of cuteness and moe-centric style that a studio like Kyoto Ani is known for. The designs have this kind of inherent cuteness to them that victims of this style can't help but adore. Like, just look at this tiny dragon. I will protect her with my life. Of course, the boon of having such a show animated by Kyoto Ani is that while the vast majority of the series is quite simplistic when compared to other shows of the same year, every few episodes we get that brief flash of quality increase, either in little moments like Toru using her dragon powers, or more intricate moments when, like, she and Kana decide to roughhouse out in a field, which looks more like a Dragon Ball Z-esque fight to the death by our standards. It's those flashes of detail that exist when Toru is still in her human form and brings out her dragon side that I found to be rather special within the show. Though I'll be honest, I was less impressed with the actual dragon forms used for the most part. Unless it was those few times that we had a flashback or a close-up, the dragon forms of the characters I just didn't find to be as appealing. But what do I know? I love moe trash to pieces. She is so freaking small and cute! We have to protect her. This is freaking cute! I suppose I should bring up that the series also suffers at times from a bit too much in the fan service department, either from Toru spouting that she is a D for dragon, and of course the appearance of one of her friends, a dragon goddess by the name of Lukwa. Most well known in the show for being extremely thick, I mean wise and knowledgeable, not at all a fan service character whatsoever.
Extra thick!
Like, even if she was the dedicated fan service character, which she's not at all, I'm sure that the show would self-realize this and promptly knock that off. To be fair, though, jokes aside, I never found the fan service in the show to be that much of a distraction. And as long as it never becomes the focus unnecessarily, I don't tend to mind all that much. Overall, though, one of my favorite aspects of the series is its take on the non-traditional kind of family that was able to be built out of the show's rather fantastical situations. Kobayashi over time develops into a sometimes stern but always fair parent, with Toru doubling as both the over-enthusiastic mom and the older sister, with Kana rounding out the trio as the youngest and most impressionable. Other anime have had stories about family units before, but the vast majority of the ones, at least in recent memory, are about families coping with poor circumstances. A father who tries to take proper care of his young daughter after the death of his wife, like we see in Sweetness and Lightning, for example. We don't normally see a show where the parental figures, plural, are the main focus, let alone one with this kind of Yuri makeup. There are no signs of it getting a second season, disappointingly, but the manga is still ongoing, even if the mangaka has 2 other series on the go as well. Okay, good for them. And really though, with Kyoto Anime's habit of only producing works that they own the full rights to, it's quite surprising that they animated Kobayashi in the first place. So I'd have to say that the chances of a season 2 are rather low, though what we have is still very much worth the watch. As such, I would like to present Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid with the rating of Buy It! It is the best comedy that Kyoto Animation has come up with since Nichijou, and has far more heart to it than many other shows that I have watched in the past several seasons. I think that it would be best to use it as a nice palate cleanser to enjoy whatever else, or whatever new show that you happen to be watching at the same time, or perhaps just a series to relax and use to reflect on the world, as I find myself so often doing. If you are interested in watching Maid, there will be some links down in the description for both Crunchyroll and Funimation respectively, where you can watch either sub or dub if you so choose, as well as some free trial links for premium access on those sites, should you require it. Going back to Nichijou, though, that'll be my first anime alternate recommendation for today. While Kobayashi is a series with plenty of heart to it, I found it to be a nice balance between that heart and some clever comedy, which overall made this show entertaining. Nichijou, on the other hand, is all comedy all the time. Like Maid, it excels in taking extraordinary situations and masking or resolving them with the ordinary. It's a series that is the pinnacle of the kind of high school slice of life slapstick that other shows like Azumanga and Kyoto Annie's Own Lucky Star have helped to popularize. And today, despite being 6 years old, is still memorable for just how zany and insane it can be at times. Second recommendation goes to the much chiller slice of life series by the name Non Biyori. This series gets the nod in my mind for being one of the originators and best examples for a character similar to Kana and Kobayashi, that character in Biyori's case being Renge. And I say it's for chiller because, well, that's the long and short of it. It takes place out in the country, it doesn't have any kind of fantasy or supernatural elements such as dragons or magic, but the lives of its main cast still come off just as lovable and heartwarming as those in Maid. So if you haven't watched it yet, definitely should. Thank you, gentle viewers, for taking the time to watch this video. Thank you to my patrons who help to support this channel and make it so that I can continue to make these videos. And a very special thanks to Bing Theo, Calhoun Boy, Siri Yamako, Victor Ekmark, Robert Chumzai, Joshua Garcia, and Hedril Leon for donating already. You guys are supremely awesome. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen and others, stay frosty.